Hey y'all, welcome to week 4 of your first year of drum lessons. Welcome to the drum set portion of our lessons. I am really excited to have you with me today. My name is Penny Larson, and we're going to hit some drums today, and we're going to learn how to do paradiddles in a kind of musical way. And we're even going to add our left foot into our patterns. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to do today. We're going to add our left foot into everything that we've already done. And we're going to move the paradiddles around the drums in a more purposeful way than just back and forth. Okay? But before we do that, let's take a look at those combinations that we did last week. We had the beat from Elvira and We Will Rock You and that 8th note, Beat It, another one Bites the Dust, Million Songs groove. Okay, so we had those 3 beats and we put them all together last week and ended up with a few independence patterns. Really simple. We're going to do something sort of similar today, hopefully as simple. We're going to have our first handout for Drumset, which will be available down below in the doobly-doo, and if I remember, above me in a card as well. Okay, so the first thing I should talk about now that we're going to have Drumset notation is there really isn't standardized drum set notation. If we take a standard drum set, which is, if you went to a store and you said, hey, I want a drum set. They would probably sell you a drum set with a snare drum, a bass drum, and either 3 toms, like this one, and this one, or just 2. And that would either be called a 5-piece drum set, snare, tom, 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 bass, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or a 4-piece, 1, 2, 3, 4, snare, tom, tom, bass. I'm going to assume that you have 3 toms, and a lot of notation assumes that you have 3 toms. As soon as you start adding atypical things to your drum set, the notation starts to get less consistent. So that's not a big problem. It's just something to be aware of. And most drum set books and worksheets and charts will probably have a key. Either they will be very, very, very basic, or they will have a key. And a key will tell you what space and line equals which drum, right? Because this isn't a melodic instrument, so we have to, we don't have notes per se, we have different drums. On each drum you have a ton of different sounds you can make, and the notation is limited in that regard. It's not completely silent on that regard, but we're not even going to talk about that yet. Let's just pretend that each drum has one sound for now. Okay, you're going to hit it in the middle of the drum and it's going to sound like a drum. Okay, so in general, the snare drum is going to be on the C space, which is the 3rd space up. The bass drum is going to be on the F space, which is the space on the bottom. The ride cymbal is going to be on the top line, that's the F line, and the hi-hat cymbal is on the G space above the top line. Okay? This is fairly standard, although there is one school of thought that flips the hi-hat and ride cymbal and has the ride cymbal above the line and the hi-hat on the top line. It doesn't really matter. It would be great if everybody could just pick one and we had one standard. But as long as you know what the music you're reading is using as its key, then it doesn't matter. Okay, so I think that's it for music notation. So let's get into this exercise. Like I said, we're going to add our left foot, closing the hi-hat with what I call a chick sound. We're going to do that We Will Rock You beat first. So we're going to take that foot, foot, snare, and that was 1, 2, 3. We're going to put the hi-hat on 2 and 4. The hi-hat very often is on 2 and 4, both in rock and pop and also in jazz and blues. The hi-hat supports that backbeat, whether the snare is playing the backbeat or not, a lot of the time. Okay, so this is a very common pattern for your left foot to use, and it'll be really useful for you to feel comfortable with. Okay, so let's play that one real quick. Top line. I'm going to start with just the We Will Rock You beat, and then I'll add the hi-hat. So just the We Will Rock You, just to remind you, foot, foot, snare, foot, foot, snare. Okay, and remember that was 1, 2, 3, 4, rest on 4. We're going to be filling in that rest now with our hi-hat. So the pattern's going to go right foot by itself, right foot and left foot together, left hand by itself, left foot by itself, right? So right foot, both feet, left hand, left foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we're going to turn this, we're going to do that combination with the Elvira beat, and we're going to do the quarter note on the ride cymbal. We're going to stay on the ride cymbal this week because we're using our hi-hat with our left foot. And there are times where we can have some interplay between our right hand and our left foot on the hi-hat. Let's not do that yet, okay? The hi-hat is going to be an independent voice with our left foot for now. Okay, so this is letter B on your worksheet. Everything stays the same except that I'm adding my right hand on quarter notes, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, still with me? So now we're going to take our right hand back out and we're going to go fully into the We Will Rock You groove as eighth notes. So now the bass drum is going to play 1 and the snare is going to play 2, and then 3 and 4, right? And remember, what did I say about the hi-hat? The hi-hat's going to play on 2 and 4. So the hi-hat, your left foot, is just going to play the same notes as your left hand. So it's right foot, left foot and left hand together. Right foot, left hand and left hand and left foot together, right? In a 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Totally just that We Will Rock You rhythm, right? Let's see how that sounds. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, right? Not bad. So now we're going to add eighth notes on the ride cymbal with that. This should still feel pretty not too complicated coordination-wise. Everything stays the same. Right, left hand and left foot, right, left hand and left foot, just with eighth notes with the ride cymbal, okay? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, now is the tricky one for this week. Although, if you got last week's lesson, if you've got that down, then this should be a piece of cake. We're gonna keep that same pattern with our feet and left hand. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4. We're gonna change the ride cymbal from eighth notes to quarter notes. Okay, so, and I'm gonna move it to the bell like I was talking about, right? Like we did last week. So that sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So I'm going to play that a little slower and a little faster just so you can see, because I do think this is our challenge for the day. Like I said, if you got the lesson last week, this should probably be pretty easy, because all we're doing is adding a left foot with a snare. Honestly, the hardest one for today is probably letter B, right? But if you got last week, this should be nothing. I'm going to do it a little slower so you can hear it, just to make sure you got it, and then I'll do it a little faster so you can see how it sounds a little faster. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, now a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's it for drum beats for today. We're going to take that same 2 and 4 hi-hat pattern with the left foot, and we're going to put it with a paradiddle pattern. So first, let me tell you what the paradiddle pattern is. This is going to be down at the bottom of your worksheet. It's called Paradiddle One. It's a pretty standard pattern. This pattern specifically is from a book that I wish I could recommend to you, but it's long since out of print, by one of my dear mentors, Mr. Dick DeCenzo, who passed away a couple years ago. But I knew Dick since I was 12, and I teach in what was his store, right? And I really loved teaching out of his book, and I'm sure this isn't the only lesson I will teach you from his book. Okay, so Paradiddle One. So last week we did a really simple back and forth with the paradiddles. So we're going to do something very similar, but a little bit more intentional. This pattern is 4 beats long, so I'm going to play paradiddles as 16th notes. Paradiddle, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a paradiddle, 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 1. Right? I'm going to start on the snare drum, paradiddle, so that was right, left, right, right. Then with my left hand, so yeah, a nice easy path up to what will for you be tom 1, right? So left hand now is going to play left, right, left, left, paradiddle. And now I've got an easy move down to the floor tom, which for you will either be, if you have a 4-piece kit, will be tom 2. If you have a 5-piece, it'll be tom 3, the first floor tom. And then I'm going to play a right paradiddle, paradiddle, right, left, right, right. And now my left hand is free to come back to the snare for left, right, left, left on 4E and one more paradiddle, right? One of the things that sometimes gets people in trouble is the first thing I'm doing is a paradiddle on the snare and the last thing I'm doing is a paradiddle on the snare, which means I'm going to have 2 paradiddles on the snare in a row, but you don't want to start with 2 in a row because then you'll be, if you start with your right hand and you do 2 in a row on the snare, then you'll be moving to the tom with your right hand, and then your left hand will, it'll defeat the whole point of this exercise because your right hand will be in the way of your left hand. Okay, so I'm going to play just that pattern first. Nice and slow, like paradiddle, paradiddle. Okay, so just like we did last week, I'm going to play the bass drum on the first note of each paradiddle. Everything else stays the same, just with the bass drum every time I say pa, right? Paradiddle, paradiddle. Okay, so now we're going to add that hi-hat with the left foot on 2 and 4. So what that means is when I start my paradiddles with my right hand, I'm going to play my right foot. When I start my paradiddles with my left hand, the ones that are on 2 and 4, I'm going to play both feet. So that means the first one on the snare drum, that's right hand and right foot. The second paradiddle on tom 1 for y'all is left hand with both feet. On the floor tom, when I move there, my right hand, bass drum, so right hand and right foot on the beginning of the paradiddle. And then when I come back to the snare drum with my left hand, that's both feet again. Sometimes the problem I see most is usually when people will go for the floor, tom 1, and they know they have to play their left hand and both feet. They kind of like get like an impulse and they just throw everything at so they play both hands and both feet. Okay, so that's the thing to watch out for. You can practice just how that feels, right? A thing to remember is anytime you're having any trouble with anything, if it feels like, oh my God, this is impossible, the method is go slower and break it into smaller pieces. That's it. That works with everything, okay? Martial arts, knitting, swimming, drumming, computer programming, everything, right? Everything is, if you bump into a brick wall, sure, keep plowing at the brick wall, but the way to actually poke your hole through that wall is slow down and take a smaller piece, okay? So let's do just that. Let's see how just a left hand and both feet sounds. Okay, the other thing I want to do before I even play this pattern is I want to play just the foot pattern so you can see how that's going to sound. So the foot pattern is going 1, 2, 3, 4, right, together, right, together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And like a few other of our patterns, like Elvira, even though I'm thinking of it as a 4-beat phrase, really it's only 2 beats repeating, right? It's right foot and then both feet, and then right foot and then both feet, just over and over again, right? So let's do that with the paradiddle pattern. So I'm going to put everything together, take this nice and slow. So how about paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Okay, a little bit faster. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Okay, not too bad, right? I'm going to do this a little bit faster just so you can see what it'll sound like up to speed. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Okay, and so that's it for this week. We have our first handout. We're moving paradiddles around. We've added our left foot. Next week, we're going to do some more variations on drum beats, which is when everything starts to get a little bit more interesting. We'll also start to talk about, okay, great, so I'm doing this paradiddle pattern. What if I want to play it in a song? What if I want to play it musically? Or what if I want to play something else musically, right? We'll start to get into that too. But that's it for today. So remember to like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, the heck with all those things, keep practicing, right? So, because that's why we're here, right? I hope that's why we're here. And I will see y'all next week. Okay, thanks y'all, love you, bye.